What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Saving Men's Lives Network. Today, fellas, I want to talk to you about why a woman's past matters and why you need to ask the important questions up front before you invest in one of them. We're very different, men and women, and a big part of a woman's mating strategy is gathering for herself the highest value man and or the highest value DNA for an offspring that she can possibly get her hands on. Because once upon a time in the ancient world, women would try to pick men who looked the healthiest, the strongest, the tallest, what have you, because childbirth was, before the advent of 20th and 21st century medical technology, childbirth could have been for the woman a death sentence. Especially if the child had any birth defects or what have you. There was no guarantee in the ancient world that the child would make it or that the mother would make it. So we can't really fault them for that. But sometimes that guy didn't stick around. Sometimes that guy was a wealthy man with a family across town. He wasn't leaving his wife to take care of her. Sometimes that man may have been in the military, because in the ancient world especially, they chose the biggest and the strongest to wear the armor and defend their nation state. So sometimes he would go off to war and not come back. And so left with this child to take care of came the second part of their mating strategy, the beta provider. So the beta provider is a man she's just barely attracted to physically, who was stable enough to bring in a consistent income, who was faithful enough to be around to help raise the child and be a father to it. And so she got both halves of her mating strategy satisfied through this method, and it continues on till today. Well, men are different in that we want a woman who's young, because again, the younger she is, she's that much closer to being much more fertile. In most cases, she, in the ancient world especially, would have been untouched by other men. People tend to forget that before the 1980s, a DNA test was science fiction. There was no way to be 100% certain that the child was yours in the ancient world and in the semi-recent past. Up until about 30, 35 years ago, you just hoped that kid was yours in the delivery room. And so men would want women who were chaste and untouched as more than an insurance policy, certainly that, but also because they understood the power of pair bonding back then, something we've lost in today's world. Well, the reason why a woman's past matters is because what she's been through, she carries. I'm going to repeat that for the guys sitting way in the back. What a woman has been through, she carries. Her trauma, her trials, her tribulations, her poor experiences at pair bonding, they are carried with her. Now today we have a cute little euphemism, we call it baggage, but it's bigger than that, because a woman carries inside of her body DNA strands from every man she's been with before you. And these DNA strands find their way into all of her organs, her brain, and could possibly imprint on a child you have yet to conceive with her. This isn't a game, fellas. What she's been through back then will affect your right now. And this is why women get so offended. They get so butthurt when you ask them, for example, what is it that you actually bring to the table? The euphemism being table, and it's a metaphor for what of value do you bring to me in order for me to even consider getting into a relationship with you. They get upset when you ask them what's their body count. or they flat out lie about it. I'm not in the habit of asking them their body counts because, again, I know she's going to tell me something completely far-fetched, nowhere near close to the truth. I'm going to have to use addition and multiplication to get the real number. No point in carrying myself through the stress of that. But there are certain things a 304 will do out of habit. She won't even know she's doing it because that's who and what she is. That's who and what she's always been. So there are things to look out for sure. But for right now, you want to know what she's been through. You want to be very, very clear on her family history. Did somebody touch her when she was a little girl? And if not that, are her relatives a bunch of maniacs, like people who you would see fitting in just fine on Jerry Springer's show? Because if you like this girl, for instance, let's take this thing out, let's war game this. If you like this girl and you want to do something as crazy as build a future with this woman, these people are your potential in-laws. These people are going to potentially be over your house. Thanksgiving, Christmas, 4th of July weekend for you guys here in the States, you know, cookouts and other functions. These are people who are going to be in your home and that you're interacting with on a fairly regular basis. Are they the kind of people that you want to be that close to you? See, we've all made the mistake of dating a chick who was hot. Family was psycho. We've all made the mistake to some degree of dating this chick and her friends were all for the streets. Now look, on that last one, there's a 50-50 shot with this one. Either A, she's exactly like her friends, because birds with a feather tend to flock together. But every now and again, every blue moon, you get the quote-unquote good girl who's hanging with the bad girls, so to speak. And they haven't quite fully rubbed off on her yet. The process is underway, for sure. Be certain of that. But they haven't quite broken through entirely. She still got something close to some moral compass. She still has some moral values to her. They haven't completely finished the transformation. But you got to be very careful, fellas, because women are hive-minded as a whole. Can they think for themselves? Okay. What's much more likely is an emotional outburst on her end will be reinforced and amplified by her friends and or female relatives. For her to do something that is absolutely catastrophic to the relationship. They'll recommend a girls' night out. They'll invite some male exotic dancers over the house. They'll do all manner of things that in no way are conducive to a long and healthy relationship between you and her. So yes, it does matter who she was with before you. It does matter who her blood relatives are and her relationship with them. It matters a great deal what her money management skills have been up to this point. Can she save? Does she pay her bills on time? Or is she constantly asking for extensions? Is she constantly getting past due notices in the mail? Has daddy paid for everything? That's another question. Has daddy paid for everything in her life and she's never once had to touch a bill? That's a whole different kind of problem. All important. You see, fellas, it's never been more dangerous to date, become engaged to, or marry a westernized woman than where we are right now. It's never been more dangerous to a man to take one of them seriously for long-term prospects because of the hazards that they bring into our lives, the potential danger that they pose to our economic future and our mental health. I like a pretty face just as much as the next guy. Nice set of boobs, nice round booty. Hey, I'm a regular guy. Meat and potatoes American. That's how I roll. I get that. And you guys are much like me in that regard. But I've had to take some steps back. I've had to take some steps back and exercise some discipline. And ask myself, okay, if I invite this woman into my life and therefore into my inner circle, how much damage is she prepared to do? Now, some would say this is a defeatist mindset. I disagree. Because if, as men, we aren't qualified to do risk assessment, we shouldn't even go outside the house. We should know beforehand exactly what this thing I'm prepared to embark upon could cost me. We should know exactly what I'm about to embark upon could gain me. Do the homework, crunch the numbers, and then from there, make a qualified and educated decision. The problem is most of us let the little head do all the thinking. And that guy just wants to get laid. He doesn't care what the situation, he doesn't care what the consequences are. And we got to be stronger than that. We got to be stronger than our baseline impulses. Because how many guys have it as a part of their personal autobiography? I saw this girl one day at this place. I was down, she was down, and now I'm dealing with hell. A lot of you guys have that story. I'm right along with you. But we have to be smart enough not to add new stories to that story. That's where the growth and development comes in. So fellas, I'll say it like this. When it comes to a woman's past, you need to find out how she handles problems. You need to find out what she thinks is normal. Is her family a bunch of drama queens, always arguing, throwing things at each other, punching holes in the sheetrock? Or do they sit down like a family and talk out their issues? Does she even have adult communication skills? Or does she spaz out when she's upset like a child? Is she willing to work with you? Prepared to compromise? Prepared to follow your lead? Or does she consider herself one of these 21st century Western boss babes who looks at you as nothing more than a rival and a competitor rather than a leader? You need to ask these questions, fellas. Because if you ask them early and your observation skills are up to par, then you'll find out real fast if this is somebody you need to have around you just for the night or if she's a potential long-term prospect. Remember, fellas, you are the one bringing tangibles to a relationship. Shout out to Coach Greg Adams. He touched on this on one of his podcasts. You are the one being looked upon to bring tangibles to a relationship. She needs you to be, wants you to be this tall, have this much of a body fat percentage. She needs you to have this much net worth, this much blah, 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 freaking blah. Things you can literally touch, measure, or quantify. And what's she gonna bring? Especially if she's a Western woman. Intangibles. Oh, I'll have your back. I'll support you. I'll love you forever. How much does that weigh? How much does that cost? But jewelry, on the other hand, flowers, candy, a house, a new car, a mink coat, all those things have a price tag on them. Interesting how that works. So now, fellas, her past matters. And if you, side note, if you meet a woman, I don't care if you're a freshman in high school or if you're 65 years old, back on the dating market for the first time. If you meet a woman and she says with a straight face that her past or any other woman's past doesn't matter, understand that this woman has disqualified herself from being taken seriously. She's told you, right to your face, I belong to the streets, or at least I used to, and old habits die real hard. Do not invest in me, I will betray you at the first swinging long strong I come across. Take it seriously, fellas. If a woman tells you another woman's past or her own doesn't matter, That's scary. Because that's not how law enforcement works. That's not how credit scores work. That's not how agriculture works. Apple trees grow apples. You can kind of count on that every year. You'd be hard pressed to find a farmer who thinks after 35 generations of those apple orchards being in his family that next season they're all going to be orange trees. Good luck trying to convince him of that. Past behavior is indicative of future behavior. Or to say it another way, past is prologue. Can people change? Sure. I'm not the same guy I used to be. But I'm also a logical, rational, reasonable male who understands threat assessment. I also understand that what I do has direct consequences to myself and to others. I am not governed by emotion-based decision-making, and women are. So how you handle conflict, as an adult especially, but how you handle conflict is more often than not how you will continue to act. It's how you continue to resolve conflict. If you're a woman or you're dealing with a woman who has the mindset of the best way to get over somebody is to get up underneath for somebody else, the first argument she finds herself losing, trust me, dog, is girls' night. And she will be banging some Chad or Tyrone in the parking lot in the back of his van. Stay away from these kind of women, fellas. You don't want them. You certainly don't need them. Take this time to focus on you. And be very discerning of the women you allow into your circle of influence, because they could help you. There are some who've proven to be rather useful. But the rest of them are a demolition crew. You don't need that in your life, fellas. I want you to win. And that's an easy way to loss. So if you can help it, get control of yourself. Some of you guys, man, you got to get control of that thirst real bad. Some of you guys are down bad. You got to get up, man. Do not let a bad decision haunt you for years to come. With that said, that's my time. Like the video, comment down below, share with your friends, subscribe to the channel. Never let your brother suffer in silence when the truth can set him free. Networkers, we working. Till next time.